But we're just going to settle for that. That would be nice. All right, so Shaun Stephenson is currently Division Leader and Training Functional Area Manager in the Training Development Division at the lab. He leads the division in supporting training, education, career development, as well as leadership development. Before joining the lab, Shaun worked for the Gallo Winery. He led corporate training was responsible for the analysis, development, implementation, and evaluation of institutional training, as well as mentor recognition programs. So fancy language, Shaun is in HR. But that's not why Shaun is here, although it's very important. But before joining the Gallo, Shaun served as both an enlisted and Marine Corps officer. He served in the reconnaissance community as well as the training development field, specializing in numerous ground combat areas. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree in economics from the United States Naval Academy. In 1996, Shaun played on the football team there. He has been married to his wife, Jennifer, who is born and raised in Livermore. And for the last 19 years, they have 2 kids. Taylor, who is graduated from St. Michael's, was promoted from same year as my daughter, and they've been friends for a long time, since I think kindergarten, right, Shaun? Yeah. And then his son, Cameron, who is 8th grader at St. Michael's, and Shaun and I coached him. I coached 1 year, I think with you, yeah. He's a passionate speaker, educator, and mentor in academic institutions, associations, athletic teams, in the leadership area. Shaun was featured in Sports Illustrated, Reader's Digest, and the Baltimore Magazine. Well, let's welcome Shaun.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you, Splend. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to speak to you today. Again, as Splend spoke about, I've been in Livermore for about 15 years. My wife's been here for 41 years, so she's seen some change. And when I spoke with Splend and I spoke to Marty in regards to today, I thought I would share with you kind of a slideshow of a lot of service and a lot of sacrifice in our family. There's been a lot of emotion tied to our family in regards to Veterans Day, so I want to take you through some of that sacrifice, some of that service for our family, and answer any questions you might have. So let's get started. So this first slide is of my grandmother. So this is Alice Stephenson. She was a wave in 1942. So most of you probably may remember, or may not, I believe it was July 21st, the Waves ended up becoming a branch of the Naval Service and signed by the President July 30th in 1942. So the service started very early in my family. She's a Pleasantville, New York native, and she was the first one to serve in our family. This gentleman right here is her husband, which is my grandfather, Edward Stephenson, who was a gunner's mate and served on many different ships during World War II, and felt the calling, was at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, manned a 50 caliber machine gun, and saw some action there, and was a very, very special man and somebody that meant quite a bit to me. This is my grandfather on my mother's side. This is Michael Calabra, and he's still living today. He's 95 years old, and this gentleman here truly lives his life with a sense of service. He was in Burma during World War II, and was in Motor T, and continues to serve today. In fact, I talk to him probably about every other day, and he still wants to serve everybody who comes to see him now. He was a great neighbor, really served not only his country, but everybody he's with. And this is really how I learned in myself and in my DNA how important it is to serve our country. This is a picture of my father. And so my dad was in the Marine Corps. He felt a call to service in 1958. So he was raised in Pleasantville, moved to Florida, and before graduating from high school, felt like it was his turn to serve. And so he didn't even graduate from high school. He enlisted in the Marine Corps, served in Vietnam, and later became a Green Beret was somebody that I have a lot of respect for. So do you guys recognize the gentleman on the left?
Yeah.
I thought you'd like this picture. The reason I share this, the gentleman on the right is my father, is my dad had the privilege, when we were born in Las Vegas and we lived in Vegas when we were very young, to work out in Gold's Gym with Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, some of those big men that were winning Mr. Universe contest then. The reason I show this is to show you really the physical stature of my father. And let's just say I felt like I was protected when I was growing up. So we had a very, very interesting childhood. And sometimes I almost wonder if we actually had a childhood, because we were literally running marathons by the time we were 7 and 8 years old. We were doing triathlons. My dad was actually honing our leadership skills very, very early, that I found out much later, to have us serve in the Marine Corps in the Force Reconnaissance community, which is a special operations community in the Marine Corps. So wrestling, swimming, track and field, everything you could imagine, we were actually doing it. So we had a very, let's just say, driven childhood that was driven by my father. So this is I thought you would enjoy this. This is an idea of what my childhood looked like. So this was the Marine Corps birthday. That's me on the left. That's my brother on the right. And yes, that's a cigar in his mouth. And that's not just a glass of Coke in my hand. And so this is the way my father believed in celebrating service. This was the Marine Corps birthday. That was yesterday. It was very, very important to him. So we began celebrating the Marine Corps birthday at a very early age. So this is a little look into our life. You can see my eyes look a little glassy. Something I don't condone with my kids. This is a picture of what's called Devil Pups. And so this is a mini boot camp down in Camp Pendleton. And this is for kids 14 through 17 who maybe their parents feel like they need a little direction, a little discipline, a little vision. And so my father put us through this. We sure didn't need it, considering the type of childhood we had. But this is actually a picture of me right here as a Marine Corps officer, actually giving my younger brother, who was about 14 at the time, giving him recognition for getting through Devil Pups. So a little bit about my life. This is the Army-Navy game, and as I started to grow up and realize that service was in my DNA and somebody that I wanted to be, I saw the Army-Navy game. I was sitting down with my father, and football was very important to me. And I played football for some years at that time, but I realized as I watched that football game, and I realized I wanted to serve our country, that this could be a path for me. Possibly go to the Naval Academy, play football for Navy, become a Marine Corps officer. This could be a future for me. So I started to kind of set a vision and set a stage. This is a picture of my older brother, Dion. And so as I was trying to get to the Naval Academy, Dion was following the footsteps of his lineage and his family, and he enlisted in the Marine Corps. And he ended up being the youngest Marine to be part of Force Recon. And that's kind of a big deal. It's special operations in the Marine Corps, and he went through some heavy indoctrination and was granted that opportunity. So I was really proud of him. He actually had an opportunity with a drama scholarship to go to University of Utah. He had an opportunity to swim. He had a partial scholarship, and he passed both of those up and felt like this was his opportunity to serve his country. So this is a picture of myself, and unfortunately, I didn't get an opportunity at that time to go to the Naval Academy. Taking my SATs and ACTs 3 times each, couldn't get close to what the congressmen and senators were looking for. My GPA was a 3.3, and I just wasn't quite that high caliber of student that they were actually looking for. So I went in the Marine Corps, followed my brother into special operations, and we were both serving in the reconnaissance community. And so while we were serving on August 2nd, 1991, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And I'll never forget, on August 3rd, sitting on my brother's barracks outside his room, and we're having a cigar together and having a beer together, and we made a pact. And we said if one of us doesn't make it back, we would take my brother's ashes, we would take my brother or myself and cremate the ashes and drop them on a jump. So we shook hands together, we gave each other a hug, and we went off to war. Dion left in, I believe, the second week in August, and I was about 2 months behind him. Well, unfortunately, the first battle of the ground war, January 29th, 1991, he was in the back of a light armored vehicle, and he was killed by friendly fire. So our own A-10, in the fog of war, unfortunately launched a Maverick missile from an A-10, and it killed 6 Marines in that vehicle, and the only survivor was the driver. And the only reason he survived is because he wasn't buttoned up. And so that Maverick missile came in and turned around and shot him out, and he landed about probably 30 feet from the vehicle, tried to crawl back and help his fellow brothers, and just kept passing out, broke his back, 3rd-degree burns, and he still stays in touch with our family today. He's pretty tore up, even to this day, still wondering why he's here. So it stays with you a long time. This is, I flew out, I was on the Tarla at the time, flew to Fujairah, then Bahrain, and then met up with my brother's remains in Dover, and I escorted his remains back to Salt Lake City. So this is actually coming out of that commercial aircraft, and my dad was a mechanic for Delta, so his hub was at Salt Lake City. And that night he couldn't come to the airport because he worked at the airport every single day, and he was on that tarmac. This is after the funeral. This is my father, my mother, my younger brother, myself. This is probably one of the most difficult days of my life in speaking on my brother's behalf. I was bitter, very upset, lost somebody very, very close to me, and it's a very, very difficult and emotional day. So I shared the small story with you, sitting on the back of those barracks with my brother making that pact. I had to stay true to that, and this was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. So I took my brother's ashes and I had them on my chest in a bag, and I took a knife, and this is me, and this is 3 of Dion's best friends. We went on a jump in Camp Pendleton, and what you see right there are Dion's ashes. And so you can see the light, a little bit of light inside the chute. It's part of his ashes that came up through my helmet, through that chute. Does anybody see a shape?
Yeah.
What do you guys see?
No.
It took me 2 years, and it took somebody else to actually see it and said, "You see what that is, right?" It's incredible. It really is. So, at Dion's funeral, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Gray, asked me, "Corporal Stephenson, what do you want to do?" And I said I wanted to avenge my brother's death, like any family member would. And I remember sitting in his limousine with my mom and dad, and I saw my mom's head go down, and I think my dad was proud. And I got a call a couple days later, and he said there's a policy with siblings. Went back to the Sullivan brothers and shared some different things, and said you're not going to go back to that theater, Corporal. What else would you like to do? So I started to work with Senator Hatch from Utah and President Bush Sr., and lo and behold, got an opportunity to go to the Naval Academy. So through my brother's sacrifice is how I actually got the opportunity to go there. I think what I want to share about President Bush is, if anybody's had a chance to spend any time with him, he's an extremely humble man. It's incredible what kind of respect he has for men and women who have served just like he has. Still calls my mom today, if you can believe that, in his health and the things that are going on. It's incredible what kind of man he is. So Fortunately, got the opportunity, as Glenn said, this was a dream of mine to play Division I football and specifically play for Navy. Got the opportunity to play for Navy, was a starting wide receiver, and this is my final senior game at the Naval Academy with my mom and dad. I share this picture with you with a lot of humility because it took pretty much everything I had to try to get through the Naval Academy. Academically, just really, really rigorous. And so we have what's called extra instruction. I went to extra instruction almost every day. So I wasn't qualified academically to go there, if you remember that. So the way I gave back was I would work with my peers and I'd help them with leadership. I'd help them with the military aspect. They would help me with the academics. And so this was an extremely proud day for me to get through that place and somewhere that I really respect and admire now. I actually just took my kids there for the first time, and my 14-year-old son said, "You look like this." So I don't think he's going to take advantage of that opportunity, but we'll see. This is a picture that's a little bit hard to see, but I wanted to share this with you because this is true to my heart and who I am. I served for 12 years in the military, and out of all the work I did in regards to combat military occupational specialties and training and being part of a combat community, this was a humanitarian mission. This was in East Timor in 1999. And out of all the operations I've done, this is the one that I'm most proud of because we helped rebuild that infrastructure for that country and for that island. And it was just incredible to do that kind of work. And that's when I started to realize, okay, this is why I serve. This is who I want to be in regards to things that came in the future around coaching, mentoring, and teaching and serving. So this picture is my final few days. I was promoted to captain, and this was my last deployment. This is myself and some men that I had served with, and my brother had served with. So this was in 1999, 8 years after Dion was killed, and this is on the exact location at the Battle of Khafji on the Kuwait border where he was killed. So the colonel that I worked for was very giving. He gave me the opportunity to receive that promotion to captain right where I lost my brother. So there's a lot of significance in that picture. So this was really close to really my last few days in the Marine Corps. I share this with you because my wife's on the left, our daughter in the middle, and my wife had a tremendous influence on my future and really kind of sat me down and said, you know, we've sacrificed a lot. It's very difficult having you overseas and doing all these different things and serving. It's time to serve your family. So this is probably one of the last times I had the pleasure and honor of putting on dress blues, and we left the Marine Corps. And so that brought us to a Livermore. And as Glenn said, I had the opportunity to work for the Gallo family. I share this with you because there's many family members on there. Joe's in there, Tom, Gina, Matt, Stephanie. There's a lot of family members there. But this is an incredible family. When you look at the wine industry and the wealth and the margins in regards to wine, this family has an incredible sense of humility. I did a lot of philanthropy work when I worked with them. They let me lead some mentoring programs in schools and really help and serve others. I was really proud. I worked for the family for about 11 years. So special operations to the wine industry. This is my home now. How many of us work at the lab? All right. So I'm a proud Labbie. I've only been there for 4 years, but as Glenn says, I have a responsibility for training and development, so everybody out there can blame me for the training that you have to take. But this is a very special place. Again, sharing a little bit about my story, I felt like being in the wine industry, I wasn't serving. I really missed that sense of service, what Veterans Day is about, and what it means to serve people. And so going to the laboratory and serving some of the most intelligent and amazing men and women and providing them with service and training and development. Really very, very proud of working for the laboratory. This is one of the last things I want to share with you. This is a model that I teach. So I built this about a decade ago. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to serve youth. So I teach character and leadership development to youth and young adults. I work with kids as young as 13 and 14, as old as 22 or 23. And so I work within colleges, within high schools, organizations. I do one-on-one mentoring. And this model is the basic foundation of what I teach. And with how quickly kids are exposed with technology and what they're exposed to, there's just a huge opportunity. And a lot of kids, young men and women, are yearning for that message. So this is, I just got done at Granada High School. Coach Tim Silva gave me the opportunity to work with the football team. So we went through and I taught 2 principles, just about 20 minutes per week, going over those principles and really helping ground them in regards to these principles. And I just wanted to close with, so that's my wife in the middle. That's that little girl that you saw was a baby. That's Taylor. She's 16, and my son there is 14. This is really, I'm a family man, and I'm proud of it. And this is why I serve. So I just wanted to share that picture. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your service, and I think there's many, many ways for us to serve. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Before you take off, we have a gift for you. You can take your choice of, we have some canned wine, we have some olive oils.
I'll take some wine.
There you go.